Let's talk today about blending Polychromos coloured pencils. This is something I get asked about a lot, how you can mix and blend colours together to make really smooth transitions between colours. And this is an absolute core fundamental technique that I use in every one of my drawings. So I want to show you today the process that I use to blend colours, and I'll go through that process by showing you how to draw this gradient. So this nice little rainbow between all of these colors. And then I want to go through how you use this in actual practice. I'll show you how I applied this method to drawing these ice lollies. So let's start off by thinking about the materials. Before we can even try and put any of the pencil down on the paper, we need to make sure we have the right tools to do this. So obviously a very important material you'll need is a set of pencils. And as I said, for this, I'm using Polychromos colored pencils. But what's actually more important than the pencils, I would say, is the paper. I frequently see people trying to blend colors together on very thin paper like sketch paper or printer paper, but you want a much thicker, more substantial paper than that. And I'll go through in a second why that's so important. Now, I like using something called Bristol board. This is a very smooth, thick paper. It's almost thick like a card. The final thing you'll need is a pencil sharpener. It is so important when blending colors together to work with sharp pencils. It doesn't need to be a fancy pencil sharpener, literally anything that makes a really sharp point. And those are the only three tools that you really need to blend colored pencils. Now, before we go any further, if you're finding this video helpful, please do hit the subscribe button and the bell to be notified about any of my future videos. I have a whole host of different tips and tricks for colored pencils. So now that we've covered the materials that you'll need to blend, let's think about the process that I always use. And this is something called layering. Layering is where you gradually build up the pencil in a series of light layers rather than just pressing really hard. And that is basically what we're going to do to build this gradient. So I'm generally going to start here from the left and work my way towards the right. And what I'm going to do is just put down each color one at a time to kind of map everything out. I want to work out how big each section of color needs to be. So I'm starting here with a very dark red. And as I mentioned, I want to be putting this down really nice and lightly. So the first thing I'm doing here to help me with that is holding the pencil much further back than you might expect. Rather than holding the pencil really close to the tip, I'm holding it about halfway down the barrel. And that literally stops me from being able to press too hard. I also want to put down the pencil as smoothly as possible. So you'll notice that I'm working in some kind of circular motions or oval motions rather than just scribbling back and forth with the pencil. And that, combined with pressing lightly, creates a really lovely soft color that we're going to be able to build on. Now, the final thing is that it is so important to work with a sharp pencil. The pencil is going to go down much smoother and more consistently with a sharp pencil. Now, you'll see that I'm just blocking in the very left-hand side, kind of fading it out towards the right a little bit. It doesn't need to be perfect. I just want to be getting something down so I can kind of work out where all of these colors are going to go. So once I'm happy with this first dark red, I'm then going to do exactly the same with a slightly more orangey red. So you can see me fading it out towards where the edge of this section is going to be. And I'm also going to use this color to just slightly go over that darker red, kind of overlap the colors a little bit so they begin mixing together. So let's work all the way along, going through all of the different colors. So I'm building up the orange here, again overlapping that red a little bit and fading it out towards the right hand side. And the same with the yellow here, working in circular motions, holding the pencil nice and far back so I'm pressing lightly and going over the orange color to the left. And by the time that I've gone over all of the colours, I'm left with a very, very faded and muted section that looks like this. And then all we're going to do is keep going over it. So I'm going to work from the left to the right, to the left to the right, and back and forth until what I have is a really lovely and vibrant colour. That's literally it. And I want to keep doing that until it looks nice and bright. Now, I will get to a point where the colors are looking vibrant, but I can still see some little white spots of the paper showing through. It's not a completely solid, perfect blend. Now, generally speaking, up until this point, I have been pressing really lovely and lightly throughout. But as I get to the end and I want to get rid of those white spots, I can now start pressing more firmly. So I want to finally blend these colors together, applying a bit more pressure. I'm not applying full force, but I am applying more pressure than I have been up until now. Now, generally speaking, what I want to be doing to apply this pressure is I want to be using the lightest color in each section. So right now you'll see that I'm using the orange pencil, and I'm using this to press firmly not only over the bright orange section, but also over the red section. I don't want to use the dark red pencil to try and blend the lighter red, because I'm just going to end up covering up that whole color. As the orange section's going more towards the yellow, I just want to smooth that out. I'll lighten up my pressure here so that it's nice and soft towards the edge. But where I'm going over the red section, you can see I'm pressing much firmer just to finally blend these colors together. But I won't do this until all of the color is looking very bright and vibrant and it's pretty much all been built up. Do note that I'm holding the pencil closer to the tip here so that I can apply that pressure. I can then do exactly the same with the yellow pencil, blending out the edge of the orange section, because this is the lightest color that I've got here. And what that leads to is this really nice blend. And that is it. That's all there is to blending these colors and creating really smooth gradients between those colors. Now that's all well and good, but how do you apply it to an actual drawing? Generally speaking, we're not wanting to just create gradients. And the same process very much applies. Now, before we look at these ice lollies, if you want to draw this with me in a lot more detail, I do have a full tutorial available on my website. I'll go through the whole drawing in a lot more detail than I'm able to in this video. And I have not only these ice lollies, but loads of other tutorials in a whole host of different subject matters. Every drawing is broken down into manageable sections with really detailed tutorials. I also have all of the full footage if you want to draw with me in real time too. And I always include light and dark sketch lines, details of all of the colors that I'm using, and the reference photo. I have some faster, very beginner friendly tutorials, as well as some much longer, more complicated drawings, but that have a real wow factor. I also find it helpful to include a mixture of tutorials and full courses for when we really need to cover a subject in a lot more detail. Do check out the link in the description. So let's have a look at these ice lollies. And let's particularly focus on the rocket lolly in the middle. Now I want to start in the same way that I did in the gradient by blocking in each color. And generally speaking, what I'm doing is looking for the lightest color that I can see in each area. So at the bottom of this ice lolly, this is quite a kind of mid-earthy green, I would say. And I want to put this color everywhere on the bottom of the ice lolly. Now, once again, it's very important that I'm pressing lightly. You'll notice I am holding the pencil closer to the tip here than I was on those gradients. That's because I have to be a lot more precise about where the pencil's going, but I am still just using my pencil control to make sure I'm pressing lightly. And I'm still working with a sharp pencil. So let's add in the lightest color on the next section. So I want to block in this yellow and do the same with the orange section, block in an orange up here, and then block in the lightest color at the top. So this is this kind of orangey red. I'm very much using the same colors for this rocket lolly on the most part to what I used in the gradient. And then from here, I just need to build up the colors, keep going over these areas, adding more and more color. Now it's a little bit more complicated than the gradient because here I need to be adding the shadows of the kind of grooves on the ice lolly, for example. And I also want to be mixing a series of colors together to try and get the end color looking pretty accurate to the reference photo. So here, for example, I'm mixing together a brighter green to just adjust the color that I've got here. Whereas on the section higher up, I think I just need to add a slightly brighter yellow. So again, adjusting the color that I've got here by building up some more of this next color. Now the overlaps between the colors on this rocket lolly are a lot more sudden than the transitions on the gradient, but it's very much the same thing. I just want to fade from one color to another. It's just a much faster fade on this. I'm overlapping the colors less. So let's build up some of this orange color, make this section a little bit brighter, and then do the same for the red at the top. The same color that I used before, I just need to be building more layers on top of what I've got here and making more. And that's very much the process that I'm going to use for the whole ice lolly. Building one color on top of another and layering all the colors together, gently fading where one color meets another so I don't have any really harsh lines. And quite quickly, I think it starts to come together. Now, the more color that I build up on these ice lollies, the slightly firmer I need to press, just so that the color is still building up as vibrantly. So you'll see I'm not pressing really hard here, but I am applying a slightly firmer pressure. Here you can really see how much I'm needing to overlap the colors here to blend them together. And you can start to get an idea of how many layers it takes to build up a drawing like this, an ice lolly like this. At any point I can add another color over the top to slightly tweak the underlying colors. So I want to make it a little bit more of a bright green here, for example. And the goal is to literally keep going until the drawing looks right. And that is it. For this drawing, I just want to add in any final details like all of these little white dots on the light areas. And that is how I blend colors together. So the absolute key part here is layering, gradually building those colors one on top of another. Now remember, if you want to go through these ice lollies in a lot more detail, I do have the full tutorial on my website. And if you'd like to have more colored pencil tips, do click the subscribe and notify button to see my future videos. Happy drawing, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.